Let's look at one other example, and that is from Mozart Symphony 25. In this example, Mozart leaves out the transition theme. So if you haven't heard this piece, you should definitely YouTube it. It's used in the movie Amadeus, and it's a really exciting piece, Mozart Symphony 25. If you look at this beginning with me, we've got PA, as you would expect at the beginning, primary theme group, G minor, A. This is the A phrase, goes for 4 bars, and then another 4 bars, and then another 4 bars. So I've labeled this PA, PB, because it's a contrasting 4 bars. And then as we get to the end of this phrase, it's extended out, and Mozart ends on the dominant. We started in G minor, and he ends on a D major, which makes it a half cadence. And we expect a consequent phrase from the antecedent phrase, and we get it. So he repeats the primary theme that we saw at the beginning. You see the G in the flute up there and the G in the first violins, just like it was, I'm sorry, the oboe, not the flute. We've got the oboe and the first violins on their G, and you can see that it's repeated. Ta 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 ta. I added a little figure there, but you could have added a 1. Could be a 1 or the apostrophe to indicate that it's slightly varied from what we heard at the beginning. You see in the bass line it's got the G, B flat, D, whereas at the beginning of measure 1 it did not have that in the bass. So it's a slight variation, but it's the same melody. And it's repeated again. So I've got the PA with the double apostrophe there. You could have used PA2. Starts to take on a different character here though, because Mozart changes it to a piano. Now we go to PK, which means the primary theme closing material. And what you see is as this material comes to a close, it does end on unison Ds, but there's no modulation or transition theme, so to speak. Instead, after ending on this, here we get a D major chord, D, F sharp. Suddenly, Mozart bursts into the secondary theme. We're clearly in B flat major. There's a rest that sets up and clearly sets off the secondary theme, but there's no transition, so to speak. So this is a great example of a piece that has no transition, but it's definitely a sonata form. So I've got an SA labeled here to start the secondary theme, and it's in 4+4 phrasing, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we've got the next phrase that goes together at measure 37, SB, and that leads us to the next system. Here we are at measure 38. This continues on, and you can see this is the edge of the system here. We drop back down to here to measure 46 and keep going until we get to SC, the third phrase of the secondary theme group. So that means we're still in the key of B flat major. Started in G minor, and we move to the relative major, B flat major. There's a nice sequence here. I labeled it in my score as a chase sequence where the upper violins play and then the lower strings imitate them, and it creates a kind of chasing atmosphere to me. And we come to the K, which is the closing theme. A totally different theme, as you see here in the first violin. So it gets its own letter and its own label. And this is still in the key of B flat, the relative major. We stay in B flat, and that should lead us all the way to the double bar. And sure enough, we get to the ending of the exposition, and Mozart gives us a little bit of music to transition us back to G minor, to the opening theme, because we're going to repeat back. Same double bar you saw in binary forms. This is just expanded to be a much bigger piece. As we move into the development, very quickly, you're going to see modulation to many different keys. You can see that he throws in an A flat right away, and then it modulates to C minor, and then to D major, G minor, A major, D minor. He's just going all over the place, very unstable tonally, and we're going to be looking, where does Mozart bring back G minor and the opening theme? And very clearly, we have it at measure 117, recap. And he sets us up with the winds, giving us, this is 4 horn players plus the oboe player, giving us the chord that leads us into a dominant chord, which is D, F sharp, A. and then back to the G minor. Interesting to me is it starts with unison G, so you really don't know if it's G minor or G major. Da 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 da. When you hit that E flat, you start to guess, oh, it's going to be the minor key. But until then, we're not sure. And then it follows the same sequence as we did, and I haven't filled in all the LaRue letters here in this second part of my score yet. But that brings us to the ending, and then the coda is optional. So some pieces have them and some don't. In this case, Mozart has the repeat sign at the end of the development and recapitulation section, which would bring us back. A lot of people don't take that anymore, and we'd go right on into the coda. You see that it's not a codetta because it's a substantial enough section. There's quite a few bars here. It is based on the primary theme group material, so we could add a PA here because it's just like the opening. But then it's developed and varied and repeated to bring us to a close. Hope you enjoyed this short video showing some examples of phrasing and of LaRue symbols. Now you've got to dig in on your own assignments and presentations and give it your best shot, and you'll get some feedback if there was any questions or changes that need to be made. Thank you.